And here we are now. Jolly good, jolly good. Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday.
Hello. Happy TeaFlix Day, folks. Welcome back. Hope you're all good.
The first of another month.
Yes. Oh, yes. Lovely. We all get to pay rent today.
Yay.
And car payments.
And some people, lots of it.
Yes.
Just checking the stream here. And yes, we are live. Excellent.
Good. So the weather remains at the top of the headlines. We've been very lucky here in Playa del Rey, but the rest of the country and both sides of the pond, it's been pretty crazy. So I hope you're all right.
Well, that will lead beautifully into one of our conversations with our esteemed guest today about climate change.
Yes.
And what we can
And she's British too, so she's used to talking about the weather, aren't we all?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So can you see us loud and clear, Martin?
I'm having connection issues, but it's
okay. All right, good. So without further ado, we are really thrilled, and thank you to Annika Altfeld, our friend in Oxnard, who introduced us to this lovely lady who is a fellow Brit. And gosh, where would you even start with Helene? She is so multi-talented. It's like, I don't know where to start, but
disgusting.
You'll see on the event bio and going across, if you go to hollywoodelite.org, which is one of her websites, we are thrilled to welcome composer, author, songwriter, CEO, and all around jolly good girl today. And the crowd goes wild for Miss Helene Muddiman. Hello.
Hi there. Good morning.
Hey. Hello. And I apologize in advance for my dog.
That's all right.
True to form. As soon as you press live, he started barking. So
they know.
Oh, he looks rather sweet, actually. What's his name?
He's called Blue, and he is very cute, but he just is very protective of me. So if he hears a car going past, he's like, "Don't come anywhere near."
Jolly good.
Well, he'll be more than welcome. We have Butch the cat coming on our deal, so. We've got people coming in on the comments, if I can just find them. Good morning, everybody. So, Helene, gosh, where to start? You were the amount of credits you've displayed, and Angie, you were saying she was really young when she got.
Oh, yes. How old were you when you signed your first deal with EMI in England?
I was 18, and of course that was only a couple of years ago.
Of course.
But we were lucky. We got discovered by our manager who was working in a record shop, and he was playing our demo tape in those days. So we got discovered by one of the EMI reps who was coming in with all the records that had been released that week, and he took our demo to an A&R guy, and that was how he started off. And it was so lucky. I mean, it was funny to think that our manager, who hadn't had any experience in the music business at all, he'd actually done a degree in history, not even music history, just history, and was working in a record shop. I mean, who would have thought that would be the path to?
Exactly.
Well, it was a couple of fans going into the NEMS record shop in Liverpool asking for a record by the Beatles that caught the ear of Brian Epstein, who his family owned the NEMS record shop, and he said, "Who are the Beatles?" And they said, "Oh, they play down the cabin at lunchtimes." And that was how they got discovered, by people walking into a record shop and asking about them.
Right, and I think that's where our similarities end.
Well, unless you were in the Sheetles, then yes, I think so.
At what stage did you decide to come to England? To America? What brought you over here?
I came over with my agent at the time, Karen Elliott, and we had so much fun. She used to let me stay with her when she went on a trip there, and we stayed at the Sunset Marquee, and I just totally fell in love with the place.
Wow.
And so then I said to my husband, at the time, I said, "Look, I'm going to America in January. I'd like you to come. It would be great if you could come, but I'm going to go and try it out for like 4 or 5 months." And so he was like, I'm not really sure I like LA, because he'd been there before, and he was a student, and he didn't really enjoy it there because he didn't have a car. He didn't know anybody.
Yeah, it's a tough town.
Yeah.
It is a tough town if you can't drive anywhere. And you don't meet people like in London walking down the street.
That's
Right.
right. Yeah.
And you don't go to pubs. You know, that was the whole culture was very different.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
Yes.
I said to him, you know, well, just let's give it a go. And if you don't like it, then, you know, it's fine. But like, let's try it. Because I'm a great believer in do things that you later regret rather than don't do them and regret not doing them.
Not doing it.
100%.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Girl after
Absolutely.
my own heart.
Well, if you don't try, you don't know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And we absolutely, it was quite funny actually, because we went in the October and I said to him, you know, let's see if we can decide where we want to live, because we had no real reason to go anywhere. And of course, LA has so many wonderful places, you know, from Pasadena to, you know, wherever. I mean, there's loads of different places that are all beautiful in their own right. And so we basically met up with a friend of his who he had been at college with, who worked at the Getty. And then he said, oh, you know, as a matter of fact, we're looking for people to start in, you know, with our company, you know, with the Getty, who work at other museums, that we can sort of second them.
Oh.
And my husband was working at the Tate at the time. And so he was like, well, shall I apply? And he went, yeah. So he applied and they just gave him this secondment, and which was just perfect, because then we had the reason for him to go as well.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm a great believer in life working out like that. If you make plans, then it happens. You know, the grid fills in, or whatever they say is
That's right. Yeah.
The universe becomes your travel agent instead of the other way around, right?
right.
Yeah, you manifest it.
Funnily enough, when I was planning to come here, so that was in the October, we had that kind of all sorted itself out. And then in November, my agent said to me, do you want to do a demo for this new Cartoon Network series, The Cramp Twins? And I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. So I did this demo, and then they said, oh, yeah, come in and have a meeting. So I went and met with them, and they said, oh, you know, we really love your demo, and we're thinking of inviting you to do the series. It starts in January. And I was like, oh, great, this is wonderful, thank you. And but I was kind of in the back of my mind thinking, oh God, you know, I'm in America in January. And this was before everybody was doing Zoom calls, but I was getting very upbeat. I said, it'd be fine. I said, you know, I'm actually going away. I said, but, you know, I'm going to take all my studio with me, and I can work. And while you're asleep, I'll be working. And then when you wake up, you'll have all the music there. And then you can make some critiques while I sleep and think about it. And then when I wake up, I can do any changes you want or get on to the next episode. And I said, it'd be fine. And their mouths dropped. I was like, oh no, I've lost the gig. And they went, oh, well, LA is where you're going to be working with the team. That's where they are.
Oh, that's hilarious. Good grief.
So
what year was it you originally came to LA?
2001. Well, 1995 was when I first came with my agent, when we were having a bit of a jolly. I mean, don't tell me. We were working really hard. Yeah. And then 2001 was when I worked on the Cramp Twins, and we came for 5 months, and I literally set up my studio, started work, and then the last day finished all 52 episodes and went back to England. And like, you know, they say work expands to fit the time available.
Yep.
It really does.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And so what was your first instrument as a child growing up?
Well, I wanted to play drums, but my mum wouldn't let me, bless her. And she wouldn't let me ride a motorbike. But, you know, I have these things to celebrate when she does finally pop off. She's 96, but, you know, bless her. It'll be the thing that comforts me when she pops off, because I love her so much. That I'll go and ride a motorbike with a sort of one-man band.
Cymbals under your armpits.
Oh, God. How lovely.
That is totally wild.
And then I learned guitar. That was a kind of a polite instrument. She didn't mind that. And I really did admire the guitar. Apparently I waddled up television and was like, what one, when I could hardly talk. So she was happy to buy me little ukuleles and things when I was little.
Wow.
And I had a big rhinestone plastic guitar that my mum bought me that was so fantastic when I was like, I think I was about 5, and it was massive. I used to take it everywhere with me. I'd sit at the dinner table eating with it. And I lent it up in the kitchen because she asked me to go and get something. So I lent it up at the kitchen and got this thing, and the thing broke. It fell, and the neck came off the body. And Actually, it's funny. You see my Gretsch guitar there. I think that's my childhood sort of homage to this rhinestone guitar that with this sort of beautiful plastic guitar that I had when I was young. So I got the real thing eventually.
Yeah, well, you could always bling that up too, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's got a bit of,
pearl
tremolo and
nice.
It's actually it's a Viking. It's a Gretsch Viking.
Okay.
It's kind of in the style of the famous ones with usually got a gold whammy bar, but this one's all silver. Looks like a wedding cake.
Nice. And how long have you had that beauty?
I think we got that when we were in the band, so that was a long time ago. There's actually a 1969 which I customized, which apparently is obviously sacrilegious because that's the effect. I didn't care because I wanted it to be like this blinged up, unique guitar that no one else had.
Beautiful. So you were having your George Harrison moment, were you?
I was, yeah. And every time I used to wake up in the morning, I'd open the case and I'd be like, the choir of angels would sing. It was very beautiful.
Does she have a name? I'm assuming it's a she.
Well, actually, she doesn't. No.
Oh, we should have the crowd suggest a name for her.
Yes, that's the name for the white Gretsch.
Yes.
Indeed. Well, probably Gretchen. Duh.
Yes, bride. Gretchen the bride.
That you never know. You might start something.
But you was talking about working between time zones and things, and then it all worked out to work here. I think we were talking about how do you manage like UK film stuff, and since the pandemic and Zoom, do time zones really matter anymore? You're working on a project called Deep Undercover, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, sometimes I actually go over to England, which I was there when I was working on that. But I also have a colleague that I was working with on that project, Grigor, who was working in America at the time. So the time zones are really tricky, and I'm constantly getting myself in a pickle. And I was trying to tell people, it's on at 11:30, which is 9:30 England time. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's 7:30.
It's the other way around.
Right.
Yeah.
Always getting in a pickle with all the time. And I work with people in Australia and across the other side of America. So we're constantly like, is that Central Time or is that Eastern Time? Is it? So it's
right.
So now tell us more about Deep Undercover, director.
Yeah, Deep Undercover. A wonderful director, Eddie Bamake, and he's just so lovely. And he was someone I met a long time ago when I did a movie called Skin, and we had no budget for anything really, and so we had this sort of guerrilla campaign to try and get the word out in London. And he just answered an ad or was friends with, I can't exactly remember who he was friends with and how we got involved, but he volunteered to come and be part of our guerrilla crew going around London with sandwich boards, trying to tell people about this new film. And so we kept in touch ever since. And so I totally owe this guy because he was so wonderful. And then he's now a director. He's worked over time and finally got his first feature film, and I'm so happy for him.
Oh yes.
He's doing this. We did a pilot, and it went to Cannes, and he got it picked up in Cannes. So
great.
Fantastic. And for the folks watching, that the director's name is Eddie Bamake. That's Bammeke. If anybody wants to Google him, I would encourage that for sure.
Yeah.
How exciting.
Yeah.
So
he's wonderful, and he's such a fun guy, and he's such a good guy. His heart's in the right place, and
that's nice.
Yeah, really.
Well, it's a nice thing to have those kind of relationships where you don't feel like you have to pay it back or pay it forward immediately, but that it goes around and comes around, and someday you'll be able to repay the kindnesses that people have shown you.
And we have several people in our lives that have been around for years, and maybe sometimes we don't get in touch for years.
Yeah.
But you always know where to find them, or they know where to find you. If something comes on your radar, you think, oh, that might suit so-and-so.
Yeah. No, definitely. This was definitely a relationship. We hadn't spoken to each other for a while, but then every time we got back in touch, we were instant friendship again.
Yeah. What about audiobooks? Have you written for audiobooks, music?
Yeah, and I wrote for these things called meta books. which was this quite disruptive innovation of a director, Benjamin Alfonsi. He was the person I first started doing these books with, and I'm amazed how inspirational he is with the way he has developed this software and this whole meta book idea. And I think it's still got to have its day. It's still, but I admire him very much for this disruption of the book industry that he's trying to achieve with these meta books.
I'd love to know more about that. We actually my husband Martin just produced an audiobook that we just got approved for Audible, our first one at McCartney Studios. And thank you. When you read some of the do's and don'ts and instructions, a lot of these platforms say no sound effects, no music. You've got to give them O-tone, which means for our listener Tracy, it means there's the sound of silence in the room that you recorded it, right? And so it's room tone or O-tone. And I'm just thrilled to know that there is a place and a platform and somebody like
this is what he's trying to do, is to
disrupt it. Yeah, it should be a whole all-round experience, right?
That's exactly what he's trying to do with this concept, and I admire him very much, and I think it's wonderful.
Where can I find out?
Using the music as well to create, a layer of the book that can help the reader imagine what the spoken word.
Yes. Oh yeah, I think
it's a wonderful thing. And because often you watch a film and you think, oh, it's not really as good as the book.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And yet, if you've got the book and you've also got the music, you've got most of the things that a film might not do as well.
Right.
Obviously not the actors and stuff. Well, you've got the actors reading the book maybe. But, I just think it's a very fascinating evolution of book audio.
Where can I find out more about it? Do they have...
Get in touch with Benjamin Alfonsi.
Okay.
And I can put a link for it. I'm sorry, I didn't get that ready.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Send us it later.
Yeah. And is it Meta Books with 2 T's in Meta?
No, I think it's 1 T, META, I think.
Okay.
Although don't allow my spelling. No, that's so funny about me getting my poems published, because my mum always used to have a good old laugh with my English teacher about my English spelling, and everything was terrible. So I quite like the fact that I can say to my mum, but I had poems published now. I get a laugh.
Big poems.
Exactly. Our friend Ashley Davey from Alabama is saying that we could call the guitar the Gretsch Gertrude.
That's a cow, isn't it? From
Gertrude, I don't know, but he's just saying that.
Just call her Gert and leave out the rude part.
Dad jokes. Terrible. Apparently, my dear stepbrother Paul used to call Linda Gertrude Higgins. He used to introduce her at Wings concerts as on the piano, Gertrude Higgins. As everybody knew it was Linda McCartney, but Gertrude Higgins. So next time you check into a hotel and you want to be all incognito and hiding from your throngs of TikTok followers, you can check in as Gertrude Higgins, you see. It's absolutely wild. No, I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated with these meta books, because we've been disrupting the print part of the book industry for about 5 or 6 years now with Angie's books by putting QR codes in them. One of her books, Your Mother Should Know, is all just stories about her life and, the whole swinging 60s and all of that. And it came out during the lockdown. And we said, well, if a grandparent or somebody of a certain age is sitting reading a book and they've got a family bubble that, so many families just moved in together, and the grandkids are sitting there going, well, Granddad, who were the Beatles? Why shouldn't there be a multimedia component? So we researched a ton of QR codes to, like, the Ed Sullivan appearance of the Beatles the first time on TV in America. And so every chapter has a multimedia link to it. So you get the dual experience of reading the book and then generationally being able to share it to somebody sitting there with a smartphone. So it's kind of a twofer,
That's great. Then you got engaged so that all the generations are getting engaged.
Exactly. Yeah,
exactly
that's
right.
Yeah.
Anything that encourages children to read.
Oh, I'm with you.
In between the clicking on the video,
Yep. No, absolutely. So you've also done the healing powers of sound, right? Because sound is not just notes on a scale, is it? I mean, it's resonant and reflects in and out of all of us. I mean, when you think about it, you turn a little transistor radio on and dial the knob, there's all of that sound is in the room, it's in the air. We just use the radio to hear it. But when it comes to healing and waves and stuff, talk a little bit about your world.
I'm very interested in this topic because, I mean, only fairly recently became really fascinated by energy generally and how we're all kind of, I think apparently we're 70% water when we're born. Yeah. And then as we age, we dry out.
I know.
And I can't find my car keys. Yeah. Menopause.
Yeah. And so water, if you put a sprinkler, or a hose, and then you connect it to a tone, it will affect the way the water comes out of the hose. Amazing. So water is intrinsically affected by sound and therefore so are we. And obviously, there's so many different things that even if you're listening to a piece of music and you get goosebumps or I can remember when my first child was born and I was listening to Vaughan Williams, The Lark Ascending, and the doorbell rang and I went to the door and there was the lovely nurse, the midwife, and she said in such a sincere, compassionate way, hello, how are you? And a big wave of emotion just came over me and I started to cry and I didn't know why. I wasn't feeling sad particularly. So I was just her baby. I was very happy. So she was like, she gave me a hug. What's the matter? And I was like, I honestly don't know. And then I realized it was the music that had suddenly sort of crescendoed in this emotional wave of music. And then with her being empathetic, it just got to me. And I just think that, there's so many different ways that music can affect us mentally and physically.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Very much so.
Well, I was saying last week we had the incredible Marcella Detroit from.
Oh, I love her. I've written a song with her. That's so funny. I think.
Oh, really?
Small world.
Separation.
And we were talking last week about how music and numbers, mathematics.
Well, yes.
Are really the only true universal languages that everybody can hear and see and understand and grasp at some level, I was speaking at a music conference in San Diego years ago, and a gentleman who shall remain nameless, who started one of the early big music platforms when MySpace was around. He started a music platform, and he just sold it for $600 million. And we were going to be seated next to each other on this panel, mentoring young people about the music industry and publishing and marketing and how to take care of their rights and all of the things we'll get into in a minute with your Hollywood elite. Yeah. And so just conversationally, I said to this chap, so Michael, what kind of music do you like? And he looked at me square, and I swear to God, and said, I don't like music. I like money. I mean,
I don't like music.
I like my
off with his head.
I wish I could say that comes as a shock, but it's very obvious, isn't it?
I asked to be reseated.
Look at what the decimation he's caused in the industry to know that that's what the bean counters feel about creativity. Right. And I've been battling it with the SCL. I'm a board member of the Society of Composers and Lyricists, and one of the founding members of Sonar back in the day. And these wonderful organizations who try to advocate, they do advocate for composers and songwriters. And it's a thankless task, to be honest.
Yeah. Sammy's just saying, I don't like music. Who could say that? I'll tell you offline, Sammy. I'm not allowed to say.
The Hollywood Elite was basically a company that I set up as a charity to try to combat a lot of what was going on. And, we've made some headway in that, now the SCL's president is a paid president, which means that we have someone, because previously we'd have a president who would be in office literally as long as they could afford to, which meant it was 2, 3, maybe 4 years max. The consistency, we didn't have it. And then these we're trying to fight these massive companies.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really practical. So at least we have a fighting chance now that people understand that we need to pay our people at the top so that they stay to represent us.
That's right.
Well, it's like the Hollywood foreign press. They caught so much flack a few years ago because of diversity, as they should, rightly so. But what people didn't know is that the journalists, the 100 members of the HFPA, don't get paid. They fly to all Karlovy and Cannes and the film festivals on their own mileage and their own dime and their own time. They get the doors open because they're a member of the Golden Globes, but they don't get a salary. They have to get in the room, get the article, and sell the article to the press to make their living. So, I mean, how are you going to, it's like the SCL, how are you going to sustain a situation that is, ongoing and has some kind of stability if everybody's just doing it for as long as they can afford to? It's crazy.
Well, and it's kind of the scorched earth policy. They take away all our money that we could earn so that we don't have money to fight for our rights.
That's right.
Well, you know what? I have to have a corporate Spotify account for all the artists that we manage their, uploads and playlists and things. But I myself do not rent music. I buy it. And I think if most of the music loving public, they've been sold a bill of goods about streaming, right? Oh, it's on your phone and
they don't understand that.
It's not LimeWire and it's not Tor and it's not a dark browser and it's not what was that? What was the company called years ago that was nicking music off servers? Anyway, it's not. The artists are getting paid. Well, they're getting a third of a penny a stream.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's ridiculous in comparison to what it used to be. And of course, we're not Luddites, and we understand that things are moving. But the thing is, it's not the candle. Electricity hasn't put the candle makers out of business.
Right.
People are still listening to music.
Right.
Therefore, there's a demand. In fact, apparently there's more demand for music now than there ever was.
Yes. I'm sure. Yeah.
That's the thing we're fighting is well, how do we compensate people? And then we've got AI coming up. So then the companies are thinking, well, we won't even use creators soon. We're not even going to have to worry about them at all because we're just going to use AI. And maybe that will be the death of all of us making a living. But one has to hope. And I think what I've learned or taken away from all my experiences of advocating is that, as my mother would say, don't let the buggers get you down.
That's right. Nil illegitimo carborundum. Never let the bastards grind you down.
Right. Yeah. And
I have to say, by the way, Tamsin says, hi, Mom.
Oh, hello, Tony.
Yeah, and Sammy, a lot of our crowd, I still buy music too. I think that people don't realize, they think that by doing their $10, $12 a month streaming bill, they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And 25 years ago, David Bowie said, put out a statement. Remember when he took himself public, kind of, you could buy shares in David Bowie?
Yeah.
Everyone thought he was nuts. And he said, pretty soon you'll be able to pay your music bill instead of buying LPs. You'll be able to pay it just like your light bill, your electricity bill, your phone bill, whatever.
Come to that
music will become a utility, and everyone thought he was mental.
Yeah,
and here we are.
It's true. It's true.
It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would actually, when we chit chat offline, let me introduce you to Barry Coffing, who is the CEO of WeGetMusic.com. It's an alternative streaming and discovery service for independent music. And it sort of pays it forward to the listeners and the recommenders and the playlist makers. So everybody makes a hell of a lot more than they do on Spotify. It's a great platform. So
yeah, and I mean, I think that's what we have been trying to advocate for, is that, but how do musicians get together to create something that costs a lot of money to invest in, and when they basically taken away all our income?
Well, Barry's doing it. He's building a blockchain that literally says who play, let's say you're Leland Sklar and you've been promised 4% of everything you've ever played bass on because you did the session for free. Well, nobody was tracking that. So what Barry is doing is building a blockchain that takes all of the liner notes and all of the stuff and puts it into a fair payment system. And you can, all the members can choose how they get paid out. Is it through ASCAP, BMI, PRS, or is it straight to their PayPal? And the other
thing that fell away in the past was that, we don't have so much in people that don't know who did what. like the liner notes of the CD is gone, and so everyone's become anonymous, which is good. This is what they wanted. They wanted people not to know, apart from you have to have the singer, you have to know who that is. But nobody gives the toss about all the other people involved and the many people involved with making music. And they've done that deliberately, I think, so that we become faceless and useless and nobody cares.
Right. Well, we had a few weeks ago, another old friend of ours, director Denny Tedesco, and he made a film called The Wrecking Crew about, all of the people that played on every single session in Hollywood in the 60s and 70s. And from,
including his father.
Tommy Tedesco was on guitar and
brass sections and
all of these people. And he's just released another one called The Immediate Family, which is Danny Korchmar, Leland Sklar, Russell Kunkel, the drummer, Waddy Wachtel. So it's a fascinating thing about he is trying to preserve who the guys were behind the music. And when I was growing up, I used to go into the record stores and I'd buy a record of an artist I'd never heard of based on who the session players were.
Yeah, right.
Because I knew I was going to dig it,
Yeah, I know. And some of those session players, like Derek Watkins, who was rest in his soul, he played on all the James Bond movies, and he was so, you could tell when he played on a record, and I used to phone him up and go, "Did you play on this record?" He goes, "Yeah, I did. How do you know?" You're so distinctive, your sound. And like you don't have that anymore. Nobody really knows. They might have similarities, but
I think coming back, and I'd love to put you in touch with Barry, and musicsupervisor.com is one of his businesses, and We Get Music is another. And he's building this giant blockchain where he's bound and determined. I've known Barry 40 years and he just gets it done. To just, compensate all of the, like you're doing at HollywoodElite.org.
We do have there is the technology is out there, and there is the will in the majority of people, but the people who are in power are the ones that don't have the will. And a lot of the governments don't understand that, if you put money in the hands of creators rather than, I'm not talking about the same amount, I'm talking about just giving their fair due. Yes. They would get much more in revenue from taxes, because these massive corporations don't pay tax in the same way that little me would pay. No. So, they're missing a trick by being beholden to these massive corporations that have, I don't want to sound like I'm a real conspiracy theorist, but it's obvious.
Yeah. Well, you've got Spotify headquartered in Sweden. So first of all, they're an offshore company. And then, like you say, these massive corporations like Apple and whatever, they've got their bookkeeping so buttoned down, they don't pay taxes. If it was a little like a small business economy, and our friend Nick Black from Memphis could afford to hire 5 musicians and a Sprinter van and go on the road and play 20 gigs in small clubs, people would come out, order pizza, buy beer, listen to live music, buy T-shirts and pay sales tax.
We've seen what's happened with the writers' strike, So many fringe industries are suffering. And if only these big corporations could see, it's not just about how much you pay a writer, it's about everybody in the food chain.
Correct. And the quality of the product. Jane Morales is just saying music was better back then when it was in the hands of the creators.
Well, actually, apparently, I heard a statistic yesterday morning from Richard Gibbs, my friend, and he was saying that, there's more music listened to, and actually the majority of it is older music, it's catalog, legacy catalog. So, but, maybe if you had more money in it, the trouble is young people nowadays, the days when I had a, hit song, and I could actually make some decent money off that. Yeah. Now, if that song was a hit today, I think I could probably buy a pizza for the family,
Yeah, right. Yeah, one of our clients, they're a huge band, Lifehouse. They're huge in Europe and they tour every year and whatever. And we were talking to Jude Cole, their producer. He's partnered with Kiefer Sutherland in their music company. And he said, every quarter their BMI check used to be 6 figures and a healthy 6 figures and more. And now he's lucky if it cracks $400.
Yes, exactly. And the thing is, I say to people, once I had some hit songs, I was so happy, and I was happy to then mentor other people so they could have their moment in the limelight. Whereas now, to make the sort of money you would need to survive, you'd have to have so many hit songs. And like, who needs to hear 100 hit songs from me? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean,
give someone else a chance.
I think those days of the lucky, but not lucky, very talented and subsequently lucky Diane Warrens. I don't know that we'll see another Diane Warren career-wise, since it's all been flipped on its head with streaming, which is sad, because Diane's amazing, you know, and the world needs to hear her music. So
well, so many other songwriters whose careers were basically, you know,
Marcella
on an album, and often, you know, a single isn't necessarily the only song on the album that's any good, and sometimes the songs that don't become singles had a lot of quality to them, but they weren't an instant. They were a song that you perhaps had to hear a few times before you really got into it.
Yes,
but they lasted longer in your mind. You loved them for longer. You know, songs, you got a bit sick of them after a while, but the album tracks sometimes were really powerful songs.
Steely Dan springs to mind for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
For me.
I remember a Stevie Wonder song. I wish that I could come back as a flower. Was it Black Orchid? That's the one. Black Orchid. It's a beautiful song. And you know, I don't know whether that kind of song would ever really get around now
anymore. Well, it's all about these playlists and crap, isn't it? And it's in the, again, it's categories. It's categories and playlists and playlisters, and it's distilling the power into the hands of the few instead of the hands of the many. You know, that's what I still love. We work with a company out of New York, Peter Hay and Twin Vision. They service terrestrial radio. They get on the phone, they call hundreds of radio stations, you send out a CD, you send out a package, and people still are listening to, thank God, are listening to radio. And you know, you need to find a good company to help you. But again, it's not cheap if you're just starting out and you don't have $4,000 or $5,000 to do a radio promotion.
Exactly.
It's chicken and egg, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I've come to the conclusion that, you know what, I'm just going to do music now. I mean, I've had my time doing all the advocacy work, and you know, I hope things are going to change.
Right.
But now I'm just going to have to, you know, do the music no matter what. Nothing's going to get in my way now. And like they got in my way for so long, and I'm just like, okay. I've got to get back and just do the music. And
are you still writing songs for other people?
Yeah, I'm working with a wonderful Venezuelan artist, Adriana Duque, who's a beautiful voice. And yeah, I mean, I love writing songs, and film music they're two different kind of batteries that you have. And if you get tired with one, just go and do the other one. And but yeah, no, I love to work with new artists. They bring so much, you know, new things to the table, and
enthusiasm too.
In different countries. I mean, like we're going to write songs in Spanish, and I can't speak Spanish to save my life, but it's interesting to think how I would do that. You know, challenge myself to do something that doesn't come naturally, and see what comes out. Because I when I write stuff, I try often to not start the same way, in the hope that something different comes out.
Yeah,
you know, you're always going to start at the piano. Maybe all your songs start to get a bit samey. So, you know, I've got a chorus there. I mean, anything, just start with something different to get something strange.
I had a hilarious experience back in the late 80s when I was trying to do my pop star thing in Russia and Lithuania, Latvia, Siberia, Armenia, you name it, I toured it. And the management in Moscow decided, it will be very good idea if you make one single in Russian. I'm like, well, that's great, but I don't speak Russian. So they're like, oh no, it is Silver Age poet Fyodor Sologub. It is out of copyright. We will adapt words and you will learn them. I'm like, okay, great. So like 2 days before the session, they bring me a cassette out to the dacha. And I'm listening to all of these sounds and noises. I mean, to me, Russian sounds like a cross between the log lady and somebody talking backwards, right?
Talking backwards, I was going to say.
It's a beautiful language, but not when you didn't grow up learning it. It's difficult. Yeah. And so in the end, what I had to do was transcribe the cassette into, Right, into letters and fax them to her
in Munich.
In Munich, she was living in Germany, and then fax them to her in Munich and say, "Okay, can you ask your Russian friends at the army base there if I'm planning to pronounce anything horribly or whatever?"
Yeah.
And so I went into the studio and nailed it. But oh my god! And because I got there and I said, "Do you have the lyric sheet?" Of course, it was in Cyrillic.
The typewriter keyboards were too.
Of course it was. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, the typewriters in Russia. The keyboards are all
keyboards
wrong
are
way around.
Cyrillic. I was asked one time when Ruth was about to do a show, and they said, "We need to get you to sign a release." And I said, "Okay." And they said, "Well, it needs to say so and so." I said, "Well, give me a typewriter, and I'll do." And they gave me a typewriter.
And all the letters were Russian.
Cyrillic.
Definitely mess with your head. I tell you what.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I work with another friend of mine who's French, Sophia Moiset, wonderful French composer, and we always have such hilarities when I try to speak French because I'm not very good. I mean, I have a French name, which is kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, I can't figure out. Speaking of keyboards, how to get the second accent on your second E of your name.
Well, on the Mac, it's something like Alt, and then there's the little top left. There's the accent. But just copy and paste. Copy paste. Okay.
Yeah.
But because I was asking Annika before our show, I said, "Is it Helene posh with the H, or is it Hélène like the French?" We drop the H. It's hotel, like an hotel. You're terribly posh.
Herb instead of herb.
Herbs instead of herbs. So now
But that's the funny thing with the Americans. They say herbs, but they always pronounce the H. Even when I say to them, no, you don't need to pronounce the H. It's Hélène. And they're like, Helene?
You know what you should probably do for the Yanks is just put L.N.
Yeah.
L.N.
That's what I do tell them. Like L.N. Hélène.
Well, I've had the pleasure of speaking with, I don't know if you know her, but a true French lady, Raquel Bitton. She is an incredible, she's filled Carnegie Hall 3 times as Edith Piaf.
Oh, wow.
I'm working on her Grammy campaign. She's just produced a record with Rafa Sordina. And her husband, of course, is why we know each other. He's Gerald Perlman from Everland.Earth.
That's the 6 degrees of separation.
There you go. So what did you do at Everland, by the way? Everland.Earth is the website. Their actions on day-to-day are complicated, but their mission is simple. Just leave the standing trees alone. Let them do the job for the planet, right? Just don't chop down trees. We don't need to plant new ones if we don't chop down the old ones, right?
Right. Well, Julia Hill, she wrote this poem, and it's called Where Have All the Humans Gone? And it was animated by Mike Cotrella, and he put some of my music to his animation. And they filmed her reading the poem. It's very moving. And then he called me up and said, they really like it. Can they use it? So I was like, which one is it? So he showed me the film, and it was so moving. And I said, yeah, of course you can. Of course you can. It's a really powerful project, and I hope it does well and support you any way I can. Yeah.
And by the way, for those watching, Julia Hill is also known as Julia Butterfly Hill, correct? A middle name, and she's the ultimate tree lady.
Okay, there you go. That's something I didn't know.
No, Julia Butterfly Hill is quite incredible, and lived in a tree for quite a long time.
I wanted to ask you about your podcast. Am I allowed to speak?
Go on then.
You have a podcast.
Yes, we just
tell us about it.
With my lovely friend Nada, and it's called Beyond the Beat, and it's basically an insight into the technical side of the music industry and engineering and producing and
good.
The musicians now, young musicians, trying to inspire them to keep writing despite AI.
Yes.
You should actually talk to Annika about that, because her partner Nico has something called the MET Alliance, Music Engineering and Technology Alliance, that he's in with George Massenburg and
no one says you've got a podcast, darling.
Oh yeah, no, they're not so much a podcast as an alliance of stellar engineers and producers. So you should definitely
I will. That's a good call.
Sure.
I definitely will.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's a shame that the younger generation doesn't really, they think it's Ableton and a I'm going to show my age, a DX7 or, a MIDI keyboard and some software and a couple of AI apps on your phone. No, learn an instrument. It'll be good for your brain when you get older.
It really is. Music, I wanted my children to learn music, but of course they did. And then they realized, well, that's what mum does. So then they kind of trashed it. And now they've got an ology. They want to do ology stuff.
Yeah.
The chemistry and kinesiology. But it's definitely, the research, it's not just hearsay. They've done research that shows that music is really good, not just for young people's brains, but also
no thoughts. I have a habit every morning when I go in our guest room to boil the kettle to make tea when I hear her ladyship is up and about. They live upstairs and I live downstairs in the same building. And I go in to make the tea and there's a keyboard in there. And while the kettle is boiling, I play scales just to make sure my arthritic fingers are working properly.
And you're noggin.
And that's right. And I remember how many sharps and how many flats are in every scale. And I play those every morning while the kettle's boiling.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, and it takes me back to when I was like 13, 14 years old and playing, going to music lessons. And
Yeah, no, music's wonderful.
Our regular viewers will know this, but for you, Helene, Angie was and still remains the youngest certified piano teacher in United Kingdom history. She was just 13. Just 13.
Just 13, yeah.
I wasn't just
17.
Yeah, we have the certificate rolled up in the Royal Victoria College of Music.
Yes, I'm a licentiate of the college. Doesn't that sound a bit naughty?
Ooh,
licentiate.
Yes, indeed.
I can't imagine that record being broken anytime soon.
No, unfortunately not.
No, they're all too busy on their phones.
Oh, I know. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to bungle this pronunciation up, but Saina Sani, Jay-Z, is finding this all very interesting, and she's chatting back and forth with Tamsin. Is that Saina, somebody that you know?
It might be Saina.
Saina, S-A-E with an accent.
Yes, Saina.
One from yours.
Yes, no, you have butchered the name, but I'm sure she'll forgive you. She's a charming, lovely lady.
Yes.
And very talented actress.
Yeah. So we've got, oh my gosh, we got Efrat is on from Israel. Ashley's on. We talked to Diana, Tamsin, your daughter, Emma Robbins, my cousin from England, who is the sister of Kate Robbins. Do you know Kate Robbins? My cousin. She wrote Cilla Black's eponymous theme tune, Surprise, and
oh yes.
Yeah. And what was she in? Dirty Housewives or Naughty Housewives?
No, she was voices in Spitting Image, and she's done and Ted Robbins, her brother, was in Phoenix Nights. They're all McCartney cousins.
What
so we've got the whole crew on today from all over. This is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So mentoring young composers is something you also do, right?
Yeah, I was invited by EXA, which is the European Composers and Songwriters Association, and they invited me to be one of the, I think there's 5 or 6 mentors mentoring these young girls, and it's the first time they've done this program, and I was delighted. I was like, yeah, I'm totally up for that. And they're basically young women in songwriting and composing. And we got together, all of us, and just inspire each other. We've got a WhatsApp group, and we just kind of cheer each other on, basically, and help them where needed. Like on the way back on the train, I was helping one of them do their resume, and trying to give them pointers about, because she was saying, well, I'm starting off and I haven't really got much to say. And I was like, well, let's have a look. And I read it. I was like, well, actually, you've got a lot to say. You just haven't put it in the right way. Yeah. So, just trying to mentor them on every aspect of being a creator,
presenting yourself. Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
I think the left brain, right brain thing comes into play a lot, where, if you are super creative, you don't necessarily think about the spreadsheet, business, numbers, protection, copyright, lawyer side of things. But it is super important if you're really going to make a career in entertainment in the industry to, protect yourself, your trademark, buy all your .coms, get your Twitter handle, get all of that stuff locked up so nobody can nick it from you.
Yeah. And I would say it's sometimes more important than anything else, And I'm guilty of not being on top of it at all. But it really is. It's actually the secret of success more than talent, I would say. You know, you can have a modicum of talent and loads of the attributes, know-how, and do much better than someone with oodles of talent with no idea how to exploit themselves.
Right.
And I'm not, I have so many friends of mine who are so talented and have not been as successful as they should be, just because they don't have that gene, or that, or haven't pushed themselves into that direction. Because we get, as creators, we get very kind of like, well, it's so boring doing paperwork. And, we just want to do creative things. Yeah. Which is really true, but it's the thing that separates the men from the boys at the end of the day.
Well, that's where I'm just crazy, super lucky, because I have a incredibly, amazingly talented husband, Martin, and his project Geist, which is, I'll turn you on to that as well. But he grew up in Germany with, a great education and learned a few languages and spreadsheets and, the business side of things. So, that's one of my balances. This one has been a secretary our whole life since, when did you leave school? 11?
Oh, I left school officially when I was 14, but I didn't go to school after the age of 11 because that nice old Mr. Hitler used to come and bomb the crap out of us every night.
I think you meant that ironically, didn't you?
Oh, yes.
Sarcastically.
Yes. Well, I should be careful what you say.
Be careful what you say. Yeah.
Yeah. Donald Trump into trouble all the time.
So I've got the secretarial side and then the musician side, and I've got a bit of both. So
that's great.
If you
we all need it, but if we've got young people watching now, I really encourage them to, if you really can't do it yourself, you really need to pair up with someone who can, because it's really important.
Yeah, it's just the silly things, the silly checklist, like just go to whois.com. Who owns the .com, the .net, and the .org? And if you
a lot of people start a business and don't think about registering the domain name.
Yeah.
And then get fretful when somebody else has already owned it.
I mean, for example, I belong to this geek group, and we meet on Tuesday evenings. And there's one of these guys who's literally made a couple of $1 million that every time he watches the patent and trademark office in all of the big drug companies. So Pfizer registers a new drug like Xeljanz. This guy goes and buys xeljanzrecall.com and just sits on it until inevitably something goes wrong. And Pfizer comes and pays him $100,000 for the domain.
Yeah. Well, I'll give your listeners a laugh. Someone else owns HéleneMuddiman.com.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
when we first started out in the business, there was a guy in the south of England who was
never mind.
Yeah.
I'll tell the story.
Okay.
So long story short, but we own McCartney.com. I did offer it to MPL through the Eastman and Eastman law firm on a fax in 1995. And I got a fax back from Paul and Linda's business people because, business and family don't mix. So I sent it to the business office and they wrote back and said, what's a .com and why on earth would we ever want one? You can keep it. Thank you.
Oops.
All righty then.
All righty then.
So, even sometimes the business people aren't all that savvy. So.
Well, that was a long time ago. But what I was thinking about was somebody owned Yoko Ono. And,
the same guy, I got a bunch of domain names back from him at that time and then distributed them to fleetwoodmac.com. And, oh gosh, I don't know. He had hundreds of domain names. So we acquired them. And then I went around Hollywood and distributed them. And that's how we built our McCartney multimedia business, building websites for people because we gave them an impossible to get domain name. So they gave us the web business.
Right.
So there you go. Sprat to catch a mackerel, mate.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Well, this has been delightful. And as our friend Paul Moody, who's watching probably down at Moe's, I know where you are, Paul. He always gives me hell if we don't do a limerick for our very special guests every week. So nobody gets out alive, including Hélène Muddiman. And by the way, we usually screw this up, so we might have to have a couple of goes at it. But here we go. A 1, 2, 3. So Hélène has just
wowed us today.
Okay, has just. I told you we screw us. Read all the words on the page.
Okay.
So a 1, 2, 3. So Helene has just wowed us today. With all that she told us, we pray we'll follow her story with much hope and glory and trust that success comes her way.
Ta-da! That's it.
So there
All
you
back
go.
in your cages now.
Absolutely. And
Well done.
we've got lots of people have enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for your time. Saina. Tell me
Diana.
what-
You got it. Diana. Good job.
Saina, Diana, Sarah Harriet is referencing some,
Sarah. Hello, Sarah.
saying Tivertons, you should watch all this.
Yes, Tivertons, her son's band.
Okay, great. Well, I'd love to know more about Tivertons. And Diana and Tamsin, your daughter, she says she's your favorite daughter, by the way.
Don't answer that.
Yes, unequivocally my favorite daughter.
Lots. I'm her favorite daughter.
Yeah. That's easy. Yeah.
Exactly right.
You don't make this mistake twice.
Oh, thank you very much. I don't know, from 93 to 63, I don't know which way around elder abuse works there.
Yeah.
Well, this has been terrific, and I hope to
Thank you so much. It's been
Yes.
really fun, and
meet you
I
in the
really
field.
hope that I can go over and see my mom, and we'll watch it together.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We will be, as ever, crowd posting this on our YouTube channel later on, so look for that. And go check out hollywoodelite.org. And on IMDb, you will find Helene's fabulous resume and more to be added soon in the Spanish-Argentinian music healing department.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yes. Great. Wonderful.
All right, kids, you have a good week, and we'll, hate to say it, but we'll see you next Tuesday.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.